Madam President, on Monday on the Senate floor, I expressed my concern about the number of so-called czars in the White House and in the administration. I said then that the number of czars, I believe the number is now 32, is an affront to the Constitution. It is anti-democratic. It's a poor example of what was promised to be a new era of transparency. It's a poor way to manage the government, and it's the most visible symptom of this administration's 8-month record of too many Washington takeovers. Yesterday, something called the White House blog and the White House press secretary objected to what I had said on Monday, pointing out that I had supported manufacturing czars and AIDS czars 6 years ago. Of course I did. I acknowledged that in my remarks on Monday. There have always been, as I said Monday, some czars in the White House and in the government since Franklin D. Roosevelt was president. Some of them were appointed by presidents. Some of them were appointed by statute. A few of them were confirmed by the Senate. But there's never been anything like what we've seen with this administration. Also on Monday, I joined in a letter from Senator Collins and Senator Bond, Senator Crapo, Senator Bennett, Senator Roberts, making clear that not every czar is a problem. And in that letter, we identified at least 18 czar positions created by the Obama administration, whose reported responsibilities may be undermining, we said, may be undermining the constitutional oversight responsibilities or express statutory assignment of responsibilities to other executive branch officials. In this letter from Senator Collins, which the rest of us joined, we said, with regard to each of these positions, we ask that you do the following. Explain the specific authorities and responsibilities of the position, including any limitations you've placed on the position to ensure that it does not encroach on the legitimate statutory responsibilities of other executive branch officials. Second, the process by which the administration examines the character and qualifications of the individuals appointed by the president to fill the position. And third, whether the individual occupying the position will agree to any reasonable request to appear before or provide information to Congress. The letter goes on to say, from the 5 senators, we also urge you to refrain from creating similar additional positions or making appointments to any vacant czar positions until you've fully consulted with appropriate congressional committees. And finally, we ask that you reconsider your approach of centralizing authority at the White House. Congress has grappled repeatedly with the question of how to organize the federal government, and we went into some detail about that and asked respectfully that the president consult carefully with Congress prior to establishing any additional czar. Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that this letter from the 5 senators be included in the record following my remarks.
Without objection.
Actually, it's 5 senators plus Senator Collins. Senator Collins and the 5 of us who joined in her letter were not the only senators to be concerned about this. On Wednesday, Senator Feingold, a Democrat from Wisconsin, questioned President Obama's policy of policy czars and sent a letter to the president, just as we did. In that letter, Senator Feingold urged the president to release information about the role and responsibility of these czars, which is what we ask him to do as well. And then Senator Hutchison of Texas, in the Washington Post on September 13, wrote an excellent op-ed describing how the system of checks and balances is upset by an excessive number of Washington czars who are unconfirmed and unaccountable to the Congress and who don't answer questions from those of us who are elected to ask such questions. I ask unanimous consent that Senator Feingold's letter to the President and Senator Hutchison's Washington Post op-ed be included in the record following my remarks.
Without objection.
And then on Monday, Mr. President, I pointed out it's not only Senator Hutchison and Senator Collins and the other Republican senators, and now Senator Feingold from the Democratic side of the aisle, Senator Byrd of West Virginia, who is widely considered by all of us in the Senate to be the constitutional conscience of this Senate. Senator Byrd was the first to write the President expressing concerns over the increasing appointment of White House czars. I mentioned this Monday, but I want to repeat it in case the White House press office missed it. Because Senator Byrd, our President pro tem, said, and I quote, "Too often I have seen these lines of authority and responsibility become tangled and blurred, sometimes purposely to shield information and to obscure the decision-making process." Senator Byrd went on to say that the rapid and easy accumulation of power by the White House staff can threaten the constitutional system of checks and balances. At the worst, White House staff have taken direction and control of programmatic areas that are the statutory responsibility of Senate-confirmed officials. Senator Byrd continues, as presidential assistants and advisors, these White House staffers are not accountable for their actions to Congress, to cabinet officials, and to virtually anyone but the president. They rarely testify before congressional committees and often shield the information and decision-making process behind the assertion of executive privilege. In too many instances, the White House staff have been allowed to inhibit openness and transparency and reduce accountability, Senator Byrd's letter continued. I ask unanimous consent to include a press release from Senator Byrd's office on February 25th, 2009, describing his letter to President Obama.
Without objection.
And Mr. President, Madam President, finally, I would like to include in the record, following my remarks, the list of the 18 new czars created by the Obama administration. I want to make it clear to the White House press office that we're focused on those 18 new czars, that we recognize there have been czars before, that for the reasons that Senator Byrd and Senator Hutchison, Senator Collins, and others have described, we think this is too many. And we take seriously our responsibilities under Article 1 of the Constitution to confirm officials who manage the government, to ask them questions, to approve their appropriations, to withhold their appropriations when it's appropriate. So we have these positions in the executive office of the President. There are 10 of them. Central Region Czar, Dennis Ross, Cybersecurity Czar, Domestic Violence Czar, Economic Czar, Energy and Environment Czar, Health Czar. Those are two of the biggest issues facing our Congress, and here are these czars with authority for policy close to the President but unaccountable to us. We have Senior Director for Information Sharing Policy, Urban Affairs Czar, WMD, Policy Czar, Green Job Czar. He has resigned recently. Those are the positions in the executive office of the President. That's 10 new ones. And then there are 8 more that are in departments or agencies. Afghanistan Czar, Auto Recovery Czar, Car Czar, Great Lakes Czar, Pay Czar, Guantanamo Closure Czar, International Climate Czar, Special Representative for Border Affairs, and Border Czar. So, Madam President, I said on Monday, as Senator Byrd has said more eloquently, the problems with too many czars. The first problem is the constitutional checks and balances described by Senator Byrd. The second with the problem is a poor way to manage the government. I was always taught when I was a young White House aide that the job of the White House staff is to push the merely important issues out of the White House so you can reserve to the President the handful of truly presidential issues for his attention. His job is to set the country's agenda, to see an urgent need, devise a strategy to meet the need, and persuade at least half the people he's right. He can do that much more effectively if the government is managed by secretaries and cabinet officers. And then finally, czars are anti-democratic. Czars are usually Russian, not American. Czars are usually imperialists, not democrats. The dictionary says czars are autocratic rulers or leaders. That's not consistent with the kind of government that we want to have in America. It's alien to our way of thinking. Czars, unfortunately, are becoming the most visible symbol of this administration's determination to have an increasing number of Washington takeovers. Banks, insurance companies, student loans, car companies, even farm ponds. Some want to take over health care. Many Americans feel we have a runaway government with too many Washington takeovers, and the last thing we need are 18 new czars unaccountable to the elected officials whose job it is, our job, to check and balance that government. So I'm glad in a way that the White House has noticed my comments and those of Senator Collins, Senator Hutchison, and the other senators. I hope they will respond to Senator Collins' letter, to Senator Feingold's request. Thank you very much. And to the other admonitions, we call on the administration to answer the questions posed by Senator Collins, Senator Feingold, and the others that were specifically outlined. Who are these czars? What is their role? What is their responsibility? How were they vetted? What limitations are on their positions to make sure that they don't encroach on the legitimate statutory responsibility of other executive branch officials, and whether they will agree to a reasonable request to appear before or provide information to Congress. I thank the President, and I yield the floor.